Hickey! Okay, I don't know if you're supposed to be on the bed, but pets are allowed, and there are no rules that say otherwise to be found. Hello people of YouTube, and welcome to an Airbnb. This is the monthly review of April 2023, and I am on my way to the cabin, which isn't this cabin. This is also a cabin, just one that I've rented. Hello, Saga. On the way to the cabin that I'm actually going to. The first week of April this year has Easter in it, which means that a lot of Norwegians, including pseudo-Norwegians such as myself, have a week off. So I'm joining Signe and a bunch of her family to her family cabin. But to get there is about a 9-hour drive. So I've driven 5 hours today. I'm staying overnight right here, and tomorrow I'll drive on to the cabin that I'm actually going to be staying in for the rest of the week. Signe is currently in Bergen, where she went to a conference to present her master thesis together with the other girl she wrote her master thesis with. They've been sort of making the rounds of various companies and conferences presenting their shit. I don't know what Saga is doing, but she's sort of trying to crawl under the bed that's in this kitchen. Yes, there's a bed in the kitchen because it's an Airbnb. Gotta maximize that capacity. Anyway, the plan right now is that Signe tomorrow takes a train from Bergen to Geilo, and I drive from this cabin here, which is in Lillehammer, also to Geilo, and then I pick her up from the train station and we drive the last 45 minutes to an hour to the actual cabin. Anyway, for now the plan is to just relax. It's about 7 in the evening. Saga's also confused about what I'm doing with my life. I'm very tired after a day of driving, so I'm probably just gonna sit here, not here, in a sensible place in the cabin, have some noodles, watch a show, and go to bed very, very early. How's that for a cabin tour format? Easter at the cabin 2023 was absolutely delightful, but considering we were there for nearly a week, I really haven't shot that much. However, the eagle-eyed among you might have noticed that there are some shots in here shot on a phone rather than my actual camera. Particularly the bit later on where Signe and I are on slightly more, let's say, professional-looking sleds being dragged up a slope by an actual ski lift. Due to no other reason than me being an idiot, I had brought a GoPro with fully charged batteries, but not an SD card. So all of the cool actiony stuff that I was planning on filming and knew were gonna happen while we were at the cabin, I couldn't actually film, which was a slight bummer. Rest assured that sledding downhill is always great fun, whether you bring a GoPro or not. Next time, maybe I'll be able to share it. There's also a bit missing completely that I do want to make note of, where Signe, Signe's dad, and I, as well as Saga, went cross-country skiing. It was my first time cross-country skiing in 7 years or so, so the grandiose 2 kilometers completely exhausted me. It was also Saga's first time pulling one of us on cross-country skis, and even though she was also exhausted, she did remarkably well. The park we are romping around in is called Skaugum, which is located near Gjøvik, where Signe used to live up to a year ago. Skaugum has 2 rather large fenced-in fields, as well as a fenced-in bit of forest, which we are in right now, that you can basically just rent and let your dog loose in, even when in spring and summertime it is illegal in Norway to have your dog off leash. You give them 100 kroner or so, and in return you get an hour of doggy free roam. And since this park was on our way and Signe had been missing it since living in Trondheim because there's no real facility like this nearby, we figured we can't miss this opportunity and let Saga run around for a while. The day after we came back from the cabin properly, we got to hang out with Signe's mom and her partner for a day, which I again failed to capture properly, so I shot some stuff on my phone. Together we went on a hike to Storfossen, literally translated the big waterfall, which it should be fairly evident where it got that name. We wandered down 2 separate tracks, the first one right down to the base of Storfossen, and then back up and around to a lovely viewpoint. This day just also happened to be the day I got to liberate my motorcycle from storage, a day I had been waiting for about 5 months. Which obviously brings me to this. The first little motorcycle trip of the year. For, I don't know, nostalgia's sake, or probably more just for fun, I went back to the same road I finished last season on, the road to Dragsten, which is a lovely little swervy road. Technically tarmac, but the road surface is so terrible that it might as well have been gravel. Anyway, it's delightful swervy fun. Unfortunately, this first ride was about a month ago and has also been sort of the last ride in a month. The reason for that is that my motorcycle is, unfortunately, running like shite. It spits out black smoke, it idles poorly, it starts quite terribly as well, and unfortunately the seals in my front suspension are leaking, so my fork is pissing oil, which if you keep riding with a situation like that, you keep losing more and more dampening, ultimately making the motorcycle unsafe to ride. So I haven't been riding it. Since this little clip was recorded, I changed the oil and I switched out the spark plug and I did some basic maintenance myself. That didn't really resolve any of it, so it's going in to have the fork seals changed, the valves adjusted, and I'm having my fingers crossed that when that stuff has been done by a competent and professional mechanic, I can finally ride my motorcycle again. And that better be the case, because a month and a half from recording this voiceover, Frank is gonna be here with his motorcycle, hoping that we can ride down to the cabin together. And if my bike by then still isn't in any condition to ride it, I'm gonna be thoroughly depressed. So let's hope that all of this will be resolved when it has gone in for service in 2 weeks. And let's cross our fingers for a big old road trip with Frank mid-June. That is nearly it for the month of April 2023, except for the fact that my sister, my mom, and my grandma came to visit just on the overlap of April and May, so I'm going to include it in April because there's a lot of stuff happening in May, so, you know, splitting the load. Their visit was absolutely lovely, and it was particularly delightful that my grandmother was able to join because, first of all, she isn't abroad that often anymore. Second, she loved Norway, and when she was younger, her and my granddad would come to Scandinavia all the time, as far as I'm aware. And she's also just never visited me while I've been living abroad. So this was the first time in 7 years, well over 7 years, that she's been to visit me, and I was able to show her around where I lived. The unfortunate part of this was I showed her around where I lived when it was supposed to be sunny and springtimey, but we had snow and around 0 degrees Celsius. I suggested they come in May because surely by then spring would have arrived. The trees would start budding, the flowers would start growing, the leaves would start exuding green, lively, vibrant energy throughout the atmosphere. But no, there was snow nearly every day while they were here. The particularly annoying part about this is that they rented an Airbnb off in the woods somewhere, which was only available by this 2-track sort of tractor trail. And the car they rented was a 2-wheel drive crossover type thing on summer tires. So the very first evening we arrived at their cabin, they wanted to head off again after dinner, but they got stuck in the snow. So after just plain staying at their cabin the second day and having us come over to them instead of actually going out and doing something, they exchanged their car for one with winter tires and they were mostly fine for the rest of the trip. But that doesn't take away that we had absolutely shite weather while they were here. Despite that, of course, in the few days we had together, we did do some nice stuff. We went on some lovely drives to show my grandma the sights of the area. We drove around Jonsvatn and Bymarka and had dinner at the old TV tower at Tyholttårnet, which is always lovely because it's this massive tower with this panoramic restaurant in the top with a spinning floor. So in the span of an hour, you get to see all of the region, which is really quite cool. And then on the last day, we went to Tautra, the same sort of monastery type island that Signe and I went to in the autumn last year. We had some lunch, did some wandering around. I showed a little time lapse of the clouds pulling in while we were there, and then I had to run to get away from the rain that said clouds brought, as that's not how English works. Anyway, despite the weather, we did end up having a lovely time together. And I think to some extent, and despite my annoyance, the snowfall did contribute to the Scandinavian atmosphere they were sort of hoping to get by getting a little cabin off in the woods. So that was really nice. And now it is May of 2023, for which we will see you in the monthly review of May 2023. Thank you ever so much for watching. Don't forget to push all the positive buttons down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.